"You're really not leaving?" the alien girl asked. Her eyes revealed everything. The floor under my boots was already shaking when the second impact hit the outer hull. Sparks rained down from a cracked ceiling panel above the relay console, and the whole station groaned like something alive that had just been struck in the chest. I grabbed the edge of the console to keep from falling, and looked up in time to see the warning light shift from orange to red. "Hull breach on Deck 3, said the automated voice, calm in a way that made everything worse. "Estimated station integrity, 41%. I had 11 minutes to finish rerouting the jump corridor before the whole relay collapsed, and every transport ship still crossing into safe space got thrown back into the middle of a war zone. 11 minutes, and the console in front of me was already flashing 3 different errors at once. Sela ran in through the side hatch with her uniform sleeve torn and a cut above her brow that had already stopped bleeding, the way Ashari wounds did, sealing themselves fast under skin that shimmered faintly blue in the emergency lighting. She skidded to a stop beside me and grabbed the second control panel without being told, her 4 eyes moving in that quick, layered way her people used when they were reading several screens at once. "You said this station could hold for 20 minutes, she said. "That was 6 minutes ago." "That was before they brought a second cruiser in," I said. "Plans change." Another impact rocked the station, this one closer, and the lights along the corridor outside flickered and died, leaving only the red emergency strips glowing along the floor. Somewhere above us, metal screamed against metal, the sound of something large tearing loose. Captain Ellison's voice cut through on the comm, sharp and steady despite the chaos behind it. "Cross, I need that corridor open in 9 minutes or I lose 2 more transports. Tell me you have something." "I have half a solution and a station that is falling apart around me," I said. "Give me a minute." "You don't have a minute," she said, and the line went dead in a burst of static. Sela was already pulling up the secondary power grid on her screen, her fingers moving fast over controls that were never designed for Ashari hands, controls I had spent months teaching her to use, because nobody back then thought we would actually need her to use them under fire. "The main relay coil is overheating," she said. "If we push more power through it to stabilize the corridor, it will fail within 4 minutes. If we don't, the corridor collapses in 9. So we have 4 minutes either way," I said, feeling my stomach drop. "Not if someone goes down to the coil chamber and manually recalibrates the cooling valve," she said. "It buys us time. Maybe enough." The coil chamber sat 2 decks below us, past a stretch of corridor that the last damage report marked as exposed to vacuum in at least one section. Going down there without a full pressure suit was not a small risk. It was closer to a guess about whether the next 10 minutes would be my last 10 minutes. "I'll go," I said. "No," she said, and for a moment her voice had an edge I had never heard from her before, sharp and immediate, cutting off any argument before it started. "I know that chamber. I helped install half those valves myself. You know this console. If either of us should go, it should be me." There was no time to argue the way we normally would have, trading points back and forth until one of us gave in. The station groaned again, and dust sifted down from a widening crack in the ceiling, and somewhere far above us, another explosion rattled through the hull like a war drum. "Go," I said. "I'll hold the corridor open as long as I can from up here. Move fast." She was already moving before I finished the sentence, grabbing an emergency oxygen mask from the wall unit and pulling it over her face as she ran for the hatch. At the door she stopped, just for a second, and looked back at me with all 4 eyes wide and steady. "If the corridor starts to close before I'm back," she said, her voice muffled through the mask, "you leave. You do not wait for me." I didn't answer that. She didn't wait for an answer either. The hatch sealed behind her with a hiss, and then I was alone with the console, the countdown, and the sound of a station slowly breaking apart around me. I pulled up the corridor stabilization feed and watched the numbers climb and fall in unsteady lines, the kind of readings that meant the whole system was one bad surge away from collapsing completely. Outside the viewport, 2 Krell cruisers moved through the dark like slow predators, their weapons systems charging invisible pulses of green light along their hulls. A third ship, smaller and faster, broke away from the pair and turned toward the station. "Cross," said Ellison over the comm. "That fast mover is coming in low." If it reaches boarding range before your corridor is stable, I can't hold position to cover you. I'll have to pull back. Then pull back, I said. Get the transports through. That's the mission. I'm not leaving you on a dying station, she said. You don't have a choice, I said, watching the small ship grow larger on the tactical display with every second. The corridor is the mission. I'm not. She didn't argue, but she didn't answer either, and the silence on the comm told me everything I needed to know about how much she hated that answer. 2 decks below, Sella's voice crackled through on a separate channel, breathless and strained. I'm in the coil chamber. The cooling valve is fused. I need another 90 seconds. You don't have 90 seconds, said the automated voice above us both, flat and indifferent. Corridor integrity failing. 6 minutes to collapse. I switched every spare bit of power I could find toward the corridor stabilizers, pulling energy from life support, from the lighting grid, from anything that wasn't keeping the air breathable. The lights around me dimmed until the whole control room was lit only by red emergency strips and the pale glow of the console screens. My hands were steady, but my heart was hammering hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. The fast mover reached the station's outer hull. I felt the impact through the floor, a hard shudder that knocked a stack of loose equipment off a nearby shelf and sent it clattering across the deck. Then came the sound I had been dreading since the alarms first started, the unmistakable hiss and clang of a boarding pod locking onto the hull 2 decks above me. They're on the station, said Ellison. Cross, that's a boarding party. You need to move. I can't move, I said. If I leave this console, the corridor drops in under a minute. Then hold the line and pray, she said, and there was something almost gentle underneath the urgency in her voice, like she already knew what kind of answer I was going to give either way. Footsteps sounded in the corridor outside, heavy and deliberate. Not human footsteps, not Ashari either. I reached for the sidearm clipped to my belt without taking my eyes off the console, keeping one hand on the controls and one hand ready, because the corridor stabilization needed constant small corrections now, tiny adjustments every few seconds, to keep the whole system from tipping over into failure. The valve is loose, said Sella, her voice tight with effort. I have it. Rerouting cooling flow now. Confirmed, said the automated voice. Coil temperature stabilizing. 4 minutes to safe threshold. For the first time since the alarm started, I let myself breathe. It didn't last. The door to the control room buckled inward with a sound like a giant fist striking metal, and then it tore free of its frame entirely, clattering across the floor. 2 figures stepped through the gap, tall and armored, their movements quick and precise in a way that told me they had done this before, many times, on many stations just like this one. I fired twice, aiming low, aiming to disable rather than to end anything, because even now, even here, I would not become the kind of person who reached for more than what the moment required. The first shot caught the lead figure's leg joint and dropped him hard. The second went wide as the station shuddered again, throwing off my aim just enough. The second figure raised a weapon, and I threw myself sideways behind the console housing as a blast tore through the space where I had been standing a half-second earlier, scorching a black line across the far wall. Sella's voice cut through the comm again, sharp with alarm. I heard that. What's happening up there? Boarding party? I said, keeping my voice as level as I could manage while I scrambled for better cover. Small problem. Working on it. The corridor needs another 2 minutes of stable power, she said. I'm coming back up. No, I said. Finish the coil. I have this. I did not have this. Not really. Not in any way that felt certain. But I had a console I could not leave, and a door with an armed figure still standing in it, and somewhere in between those 2 facts there had to be a way through. I grabbed a loose panel cover from the floor, heavy enough to matter, and threw it hard across the room. It struck the standing figure's shoulder, just enough to throw off his aim as he fired again, the blast punching a hole through the ceiling instead of through me. I came up firing, 3 shots in quick succession, and this time my aim held true. He went down and did not get back up, though the readout on my own scanner told me his vital signs were still steady, just unconscious, which was the only outcome I had wanted from any of this. Boarding party down, I said into the comm, my voice shaking now that there was a half-second to let it. Corridor status? 90 seconds to full stability, said the automated voice. Sella's voice came back, breathless but steady. I'm sealing the coil chamber and heading your way. The valve will hold now. Good, I said, because I don't know how many more of them are coming. I didn't have long to wonder. The tactical display above the console lit up with 3 more contacts detaching from the small Krell ship, boarding pods launching toward different sections of the station, in a spread pattern clearly meant to overwhelm anyone trying to defend a single point. Ellison's voice broke through, urgent now. Cross, I'm reading multiple boarding contacts. That station is about to be swarmed. I need you to tell me the corridor will hold without you at that console, because I am not losing both you and Sella to buy 9 transports a head start. The corridor needs full power for another 80 seconds, I said, watching the countdown tick downward with an unbearable slowness. After that, it locks in and runs on its own reserves. I can hold 80 seconds. Then hold it, she said. I'm sending everything I have left to cover your position. It won't be much. Anything helps, I said. The station shuddered under a fresh series of impacts, and through the cracked viewport I saw 2 of Ellison's small defense craft breaking formation, angling toward the station to intercept the incoming boarding pods before they could land. It was a desperate move, thin ships against heavier targets, but it bought seconds, and seconds were the only currency that mattered right now. 60 seconds, said the automated voice. I heard footsteps again, closer this time, coming from the corridor on the opposite side of the control room, and I turned with the sidearm raised. Ready for another fight, I did not have the strength left to win cleanly. But it was Sella who came through the gap where the door used to be. Oxygen mask pulled down around her neck, her uniform scorched along one shoulder, moving fast and low the way she had learned to move during our months of drills together. Drills neither of us had ever expected to actually need. 40 seconds, said the automated voice. She reached the console and dropped into the seat beside me without a word, her hands already moving over the secondary controls, matching her adjustments to mine so precisely it felt like we had rehearsed this exact moment 100 times, though we never had. 2 more boarding pods are converging on this deck, she said, reading the tactical display. We are not going to be able to hold this room much longer. We don't need to hold the room, I said. We need to hold 30 more seconds. 20 seconds, said the automated voice. The wall beside the door buckled inward, another impact somewhere close, and dust and sparks showered down across the console. Sella flinched but did not move her hands from the controls, and neither did I, because stopping now meant everything we had already survived would count for nothing. 10 seconds, said the automated voice. Corridor stabilization, approaching lock threshold. A figure appeared in the broken doorway, weapon raised, and I did not have time to reach for my sidearm, did not have time to do anything except watch and hope the numbers on the screen in front of me finished counting down before anything else in the room finished falling apart. 5 seconds, said the automated voice. Sela grabbed my arm and pulled me down behind the console housing, just as the figure fired, the blast passing over our heads and striking the far wall in a shower of sparks. I could feel her heartbeat through her hand, where it gripped my arm, fast and hard, matching mine. Corridor stabilization locked, said the automated voice, its tone unchanged, indifferent to how close everything had come to falling apart in the seconds before. Jump corridor now self-sustaining. All transport vessels clear to proceed. For a moment, neither of us moved, crouched behind the console, with the sound of the fight still echoing somewhere close by, and then Ellison's voice broke through the comm, tight with relief. Corridor confirmed stable, she said. All 9 transports through. All safe. Cross, Sella, I need you 2 out of there right now. I'm sending a shuttle to the emergency dock on your deck. You have maybe 90 seconds before that boarding party finds you again. I looked at Sella, and she looked back at me, all 4 of her eyes wide and bright, even through the dust and the smoke drifting across the room. And for just a second, the noise of the station falling apart around us seemed to fade into something almost quiet. You're really not hesitating this time, she said, her voice a little unsteady, a little amazed. You're actually moving. The corridor is locked, I said. The mission is done. There's nothing left to hold here except us, and I would very much like to keep both of us in one piece. We ran together, through the broken doorway, and down a corridor lit only by dim red emergency strips, past scorch marks and torn metal, and the low groan of a station that had given everything it had to buy 9 ships their freedom. Somewhere behind us, I heard shouting in a language neither of us spoke, the boarding party realizing too late that their target had already slipped free. The emergency dock came into view at the end of the corridor, and through its narrow viewport, I could see the shuttle Ellison had promised, engines already glowing, hatch open and waiting. We didn't slow down until we were through it, until the hatch sealed behind us with a solid, final sound, and the shuttle pulled away from the dying station in a burst of speed that pressed us both back into our seats. Through the rear viewport, I watched Meridian Station fall away behind us, still lit from within by fires that had not yet been put out, still standing, despite everything that had been thrown at it, a battered shape against the dark that had, in the end, done exactly what it was built to do. Sela sat beside me, breathing hard, her hand still resting on my arm from when she had pulled me down out of the line of fire. She didn't let go right away, and I didn't ask her to. "I thought you would leave when the fighting started," she said quietly. "Most people would have run the moment that door came down." "I told you once that I don't leave a job half-finished," I said. "I meant it then, I mean it now." She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes doing that slow, layered cascade I had learned to read over the months we had worked together. First ring, then second, then third and fourth almost together, like a wave settling after it breaks. "On Ashar," she said, "we have a saying about people who stay when every reasonable choice points toward leaving. It roughly means, the ones who hold the line so others never have to know how close they came to losing everything." "I like that saying," I said. "I thought you might," she said, and for the first time since the alarms had started hours ago, something like a smile crossed her face, small and tired, and entirely real. Ahead of us, the jump corridor still glowed steady and bright against the black, carrying the last of the transports safely through, toward a place none of us had been sure we would ever reach. Behind us, the station kept burning quietly in the dark, a small price already paid in full, and beside me, Sela finally let go of my arm, leaned back in her seat, and allowed herself, at last, to breathe.